Hey, welcome to another episode of Strive 365, a podcast where we interview people to push through challenges and strive to thrive every day, no matter the odds. We're here to help and guide you to live a better life, whether you're mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And I'm your host, Justin Arnold, in the amazing Rockvox studio here in Rochester. And today we're joined with Wade. Wade and I are good friends that we met on social media. He's a wellness coach and founder of Big Daddy Energy Co., which you'll definitely have to check out after this. And him and I have some similarities, both girl dads, but he has a passion for helping others similar to me overcome obstacles and improve their mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. Wade shares his own personal journey and insights here today, I'm sure. And so join us as we explore Wade's approach to personal growth and the importance of community and support. So Wade, why don't you introduce yourself to the beautiful people listening to today's podcast?
Dude, Justin, thank you so much for having me on. I want to start with gratitude. I'm grateful to be here, share this space and time and energy with you, and proud of you for what you've built here with Strive 365. And I'm just really pumped up to connect with your audience. I think it's going to be a free-flowing conversation. We'll see where it goes. But by the end of it, like, the goal is to just move people, get them into a better energy state to go strive, right? Go thrive in their life.
Yeah, we've had some pretty variety and incredible guests, and you know, you and I, what attracted me to you is the girl dad thing, and then just living your best life, healthy, full of life. You've even had some challenges along the way, but real quick, why don't you tell us about your journey to becoming a wellness coach, and then if you can dive a little bit into Big Daddy Energy Co.
Yeah, heck yeah. So a little bit about my background, my story. I grew up in the Boston area, and I actually grew up. I didn't have a lot growing up. And when I say that, I mean more money. I had love, I had family, but we didn't have a lot. We didn't have a lot of money. So that was always a pain point for me. So I remember looking around and being like, okay, I need to be rich when I grow up. And then I start looking around, who does that? I'm like, okay, these businessmen have money. Okay, I got to go to business school. So I got to get the grades, go to business school to get the business job and all the things. So I got the grades. I went to business school. I actually got my master's degree in finance. I played football the whole way through. So I was always an athlete, but I didn't know anything about health. And we'll get back to that. And I remember, okay, I got my master's in finance degree. Let me go into the working world and start making money, right? And when I get to that place where I'm making six figures, all will be well and I'll be happy and fulfilled and everything will be perfect. Or so I thought. So I put my head down. I climbed the corporate ladder. I remember I was a VP in my finance firm, making that six figures. Like, on paper, everything was great. But inside is like, wait, this is where I set out to go. Like, I'm not fulfilled. Like, I thought this was going to solve everything, and it doesn't. You have a good salary, you have a good title, you have maybe nice things and a nice apartment, but that's not necessarily fulfillment. So I started to seek, like, what do I want? And I moved to California about 5 years ago with my wife, or now wife, Sandy. And I started to realize that the people's lives I started to see them like they were living a life of autonomy and freedom. They weren't afraid to work. They were probably working harder than I was in my finance job. I was probably working 60 hours a week or so. But they were working on something they were passionate about, and they were working on their own time, and they had a certain level of freedom over their life. They were the CEO of their own life, and I was seeking that. I just didn't know how to do it. And so I remember I started to just lean in. I started to, instead of wake up and go on my phone and scroll or social media or different things or put out fires, reading emails, I would start reading. I would start listening to podcasts like this in regards to personal growth, something I could learn. Started to surround myself with different people online and in person. And I realized these people were entrepreneurs. And I was like, I got to become an entrepreneur. Didn't know how. All I knew was get the grades, was school, was finance, was corporate America. Like, that is what I knew, that traditional route. But I started to look down the road and I was like, I have the salary and everything. I'm making the money, but I'm working for someone else, for their equity, for their dream, their business. I'm kind of waiting for the weekend. I'm waiting for my 2 weeks vacation. And I'm basically waiting till I retire. I'm a happy guy. I wasn't one of those people that hated what I did, but I started to want more out of life. And I think when you get that inkling, life in the beginning, it whispers at you in the beginning, like, hey, do this. Hey, follow your passion. Hey, follow your gut here. Hey, connect with that person. And then eventually, if you put it off and you don't listen long enough, it starts screaming at you.
Yeah.
But for me, I started to get those whispers around probably age 28, 29, just that I really want to become an entrepreneur. I hired a business coach and I was like, I just want to be an entrepreneur. I don't know what to do, but what do you do? I'm hiring you to help me start a business. So you're a coach. I guess I could kind of do that. I like people. I like educating and teaching and coaching. Maybe that's something I could do. So he started to groom me to become basically a coach. And right around that time, my wife is someone who's super passionate. And she was someone who did hate what she did. And she was a business broker in real estate. And she always said, like, she was more of a born entrepreneur. I'm more of a trained entrepreneur. And she wanted to find something she was passionate about where she could help people, where it was in health, it was in leadership, it was in people. And she almost not by accident, I don't believe in accidents, she was seeking this opportunity. And I think when you're seeking something, it's seeking you. And she started this 30-day program, 30 Days to Healthy Living. Justin, I know you're familiar with it. I am as well.
Yes, sir.
It's a lifestyle program. And I remember 10 days in, she felt so good. She has a new energy of she's revitalized. She's waking up. She's sleeping through the night. She's waking up on fire. And so much so she was just sharing about it. And I think when you're authentic and you share your testimonial, people are attracted to that. You become magnetic. And there was a business opportunity attached to it. It was a network marketing company. And she started this opportunity. And I remember she came home one day. Here's a good story. And we were on vacation in San Diego. She came home one day. She goes, "Babe, do you trust me?" I was like, "Of course I do." She like pulls me to the pool. This is like almost like out of a movie scene. She goes, "Do you trust me?" I was like, "Of course I do." She goes, "Okay, I'm going to change our family's life forever." I was like, that's awesome. That's amazing. How? And she was like, "I want to do this opportunity, but I want you to take a look at it. And I want to make sure you think it's smart, because my take a look at the business plan, the compensation plan, all the things." That was my world: finance, compensation plan, business plans. I was like, "Sure thing." And no one had ever approached me about network marketing or anything like that before. So I went in totally open-minded. I remember looking at it. I was like, "Babe, I think this is genius. Like, I think this is an exceptional business plan. I think it's a pure form of entrepreneurship. It's actually probably, some people may like this or not. I think this is a pure form of capitalism where your efforts, you're rewarded for your efforts only. The amount of impact you can make, that's actually the income you'll make." So she said, "Say no more," took it and ran with it. And I watched her get healthier. I watched her start to impact people. I watched her start to lead people. And this is something I wanted to do. And I watched her, and I was scared to join her for 6 months, but I watched her, and 6 months later I joined her. That was almost 5 years ago. And it just totally changed our health, our life, our impact. I now get to be a present, I now do that mainly. I left the finance world. And every day I get to wake up and kind of design my day. I get to start my day and spend time with my daughter, dancing with her. She's 18 months old. We're expecting our second in June, but that's my kind of long story longer intro.
That wasn't long at all. Just kidding. No, that was perfect. That's why I don't want to interrupt. You had so many good things. That's why I was sitting here taking notes. And if you guys ever check this dude out on social media, he's running around shirtless, hanging out with his daughters. Similar to me. I'm not posting as much shirtless. Maybe I should. I don't know. People tell me I should, but I don't know. But then I get the constructive feedback from my wife, of course. But that holds me back sometimes. But yeah, I love your energy, man. I love what you shared there. It sounds like you guys are a good team. Your wife, and it sounds like there's a lot of faith there within each other and the family system, which I wrote down. I was like, you ever have a book, you should name it Football, Finances, and Faith, man. But right? Yeah, the three outs for Mr. Wade. But and you can have that. You don't have to give me money for it. You just have to put me in the credits or something. But no, seriously,
maybe write the foreword.
For sure, man. But there's a lot to that story that we can dive into, and I think it's cool because there's some similarities that I didn't realize in you and me. And I talk about this a little bit in my book about the trauma, but more one of the things, not my initial childhood trauma, but like, I don't know if this is necessarily trauma, but it's growing up in a home. And I refer to it as like when you're brought up in this almost scarcity mindset, it sounds like possibly like you didn't have a lot. What am I going to do? And then you saw these things similar to me that, they have this life and it looks like they do this and they got the life that I want, so I need to do that thing. But then you realize with your own experience that you get to create it and you can do whatever you want, and you want to do something that you really enjoy and are passionate. And then when you become a dad, There's where your passion is. There's where everything is. And then you just surround it around like you didn't say this term, but it sounds like, cause it's very similar to me. Like and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I feel my most important job now it's changed throughout my life. There's a point where my most important job was taking care of my parents, but at this current moment, it's being the best husband and the best kid, or best father. I am a kid, the best father to my kids possible. And then all other vehicles are just avenues to be better at that. That doesn't mean I don't love coaching people. That doesn't mean I don't love training. It doesn't mean I don't love getting people to better health through their mind, body, and gut, but it's all united. It's all together. And so that's what I heard in that story. And I love that your wife had somebody to bounce off of. Like, she sounds like me. Like, I feel like you referred to born versus trained, which maybe we can dive into that here in a second. But you're trained, where I feel like I'm like your wife, where more of a born, I just didn't know it until I got more mature and wise. So it was cool that she could like lean on you, be like, hey, I think this is great and I'm just going to go. But hey, can you look at the analytical? Can you look at the financial? Can you look to make sure on paper that I'm not making the dumbest decision of my life? So I just, that's incredible. That's good that you guys are a team. And that's so good for any relationship to hear, you're together for a reason. And when you can find the strengths and even the weaknesses and the feedback and all that, it becomes just better together. So, man, I just love that. But yeah, so well, I might know, some of those people might have heard that term, born versus trained. So you did explain the trained version, like how you got a coach and they trained you. How would somebody know if they were born? Or how would you refer to that? Good question. Yeah.
I think what I've realized in going through corporate America, and something beautiful about the global pandemic we had, is it kind of exposed all this. But humans, we weren't made to go and around in our early 20s, start working and go sit at a desk and work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 years until we can retire in our 60s, hopefully with enough money. I started to look at the traditional system. I'm like, this is broken. I went to an expensive college. Luckily, I had some scholarships, but like, people come out with a ton of debt. They then have to go to work to make sure they can pay their debts. They sit at a desk. They don't have equity. Job these days, I feel like, stands for just above broke. And they work for 40 years in something they're not passionate about, in which they wait for 2 days, the weekend, out of 7. And then they wait until they're like 55, 60, 65, and they can retire. And most people don't retire with enough to live the duration of their life. So they then depend on their children or other people, and they become dependent. And then it doesn't incentivize living a long life either, because you're like, I only have so much money left. So I started to look at that. I'm like, that is such a broken system. So that led me towards, okay, I got to do my own thing. But all I knew was, from a young age, I was an athlete. I have a coach. I'm in this system. I'm going through school. I go to business school. It's very system oriented. It started as an employee. I'm an employee. All I knew, you kind of get funneled into that, especially here in America. And it's not necessarily our fault. I think we're all groomed to become employees, even though I think we're all born actually as entrepreneurs. And then our environment kind of shapes and molds us into employees. But I think, there's certain people that are just like, I am unemployable. My wife is probably one of them. She's like, I can't be an employee. And I think it's those people that are passionate about, they're risk takers. They're willing to go after something they believe in. They're willing to stand in their power and authenticity. And that was my wife naturally. And that's why she went through a bunch of jobs, a bunch of different things, would just quit a job she didn't like on the spot, doesn't care about the safety and security. She values safety and security less in her career than she values passion, risk taking, going for it, depending on herself, being her own boss. Versus me, I was more looking for the safety, security, the good paycheck, all the things. And I had to learn, whoa, I want a different life. And to have a different life, I got to be willing to move different. Jim Rohn, one of my mentors, said, for things to change, you have to make a change. So I was like, I got to make a change from employee in corporate America to my own boss, my own equity, my own business. I didn't know exactly how to do it. What I've realized through the tangible steps of becoming a trained entrepreneur, you kind of mentioned the first one. The only shortcut I believe there is to success, and you see and have heard this before, is mentorship, is a coach, is someone who's done what you're looking to do and you learn from their failures, their mistakes, and their successes. That's probably the only shortcut. Beyond that, it's just the reps. It's the same thing as the gym. It's the same thing as everything else. It's like, you got to go out there into the marketplace, put yourself out there, do. The earlier you can learn people, sales, and marketing, the better. I realize that's a thing in entrepreneurship. You learn those things. Those are invaluable skills because they're transferable anywhere. But for me, I sucked as an entrepreneur to start out. I remember the day I became a full-time entrepreneur, I was double dipping for a bit. I was working my finance job during the day, and I would work East Coast hours on the West Coast. So I'd be up super early, working by 5 and usually off by 4. And then I'd moonlight working my passion project with my wife, working this business with my wife, our health and wellness business. It's basically, we're health coaches and business coaches. Same thing you do, Justin. And I remember I was so grateful that I was getting both of those opportunities and 2 incomes and all the things. And then I remember just getting so annoyed with my job, my finance job, and I stopped being grateful for it. And I swear within 2 weeks, it was gone. Where I was writing my way out. They needed me. I didn't necessarily need them. And I remember we did an opportunity video for our business, and it was passionate. It was fire, honestly. And my wife put it on LinkedIn. And she's like, babe, can you like this so it spreads more? And I didn't know how LinkedIn worked. I was like, sure, I like it. My whole network, I worked kind of the Wall Street world. Wall Street, our investment bankers, our investors, lawyers, everyone sees it, sends it to my CEO and company. They call me the next day. It's a Monday. Or they call me on Monday and they're like, this is HR. I'm like, we don't have HR. They're like, I know, but this is important. You are terminated immediately. You got to turn in your laptop, all the things. So I got fired, rug pulled out from under me on the spot.
That was a gift,
I wasn't ready for that.
That was a gift. That was like a gift.
It was a gift. And I didn't feel ready, but here's what I realized. I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and I was standing on that cliff on the edge. And to become an entrepreneur, you just got to jump. You got to take a leap of faith. It'll never make perfect sense. It'll never be this perfect transition or segue. You have to be willing to jump. I got pushed. Most people like jump. I just got pushed. And what happens if you get pushed or you jump, at first, you're free falling. Your gut goes through your mouth. You get super scared. You're free falling. You're hitting rocks on the way down. You're getting bruised and battered because you don't really know what you're doing yet. You're getting rejected, all the things. But eventually, if you stick with it and you keep learning and you stay around those mentors and those people and you stay with it and you believe and you have the faith and you have the belief in yourself, eventually your wings start to spread. And at first, it's awkward and you're like flying, but you look like a new bird trying to fly, and it's awkward. But eventually you soar, and that can take 6 months. It can take a year. It usually takes much longer, 5 years, 10 years into your journey. But that's why I realized I got pushed. Most people jump, but you'll have that moment decision. And I realized it just took that experience, those exercises, those reps. The first day I was like, babe, I just got fired. What do I do all day? How do I be an entrepreneur? She's like, yes, I've been waiting for this moment. And I was like employee mindset, which is like, clock in, clock out, do your job, do it well enough not to get fired. She's like, no, that's out. Like, there's no hours. You got it. This is lifestyle. You work it into your lifestyle. You're passionate about it. You do the highest, most effective activities, but you just got to get out there and do. And you're going to learn just from being out there in the marketplace. So that's how kind of I was trained. There's a lot more to it.
No, I mean,
that's kind of the MO.
No, like, it's funny, like I've known you for a little while now, and the similarities are popping up again. So the passion, that was me. I felt passion for my career, and you'll hear the similarities. I'll give this a brief version because we're here for you. And it's when I started realizing my passion, but I was working for an industry as like a trainer, a coach, nutritionist, but I was limited. Like, I was feeling the ceiling and the walls like were limiting me to the capacity to just impact people. It wasn't even a money thing. It was just, I felt limited. And when I would try to push, or I even politely ask, or, hey, like, no, we don't do that. No. Like, I was feeling limited. When I feel in life, we should be limitless. Especially if we're just literally in a healthy, positive, optimistic way, trying to help as many people as possible. And I could go down a rabbit hole here of where I felt the limits, but there were just limits on not only what I could do to how many people I could help. Like, I was like, oh, you're tapping out. You can only help what? But I physically and mentally can handle it. Oh, we don't do that. Oh, you can't do that movement, or like even down to the movements, to the actual advice I was giving. So, and that's what was like, man, I got to break free. And it was my wife that encouraged me. But like you, another thing popped up. I like had one foot in, still working, trying to start this business, but there was that fear. And I didn't get fired, but it was a little bit, I got kicked. I was told that if I did not give all my clients that I'm currently working with, whether it's in the Y or outside, oh, I just said the business. You didn't hear that? To the place I was working for. To the place that I was working for. Thank you, Scott. If I didn't give my entire list of clients, that I would just we would have to separate. That was the terminology used. And I was like, why would I even do that? That just sounds like it's like I am patient privilege. So I just essentially was like, I'm gone then. So it was kind of like I got kicked and I looked back, and in that moment, I didn't realize every time I made an uphill battle and came out successful and moved another layer in success in my life, I always had to be kicked. And so I'm a believer in a higher power. And I was like, man, God's always got to kick me in my butt.
Yep.
Like I've realized that he's literally, and so I know when the kick is coming just to take it, and because I'm moving up and onward. And so that is a very similar thing. So like you got pushed, I got pushed, and it was a gift. I didn't realize at the time, I believe I got a little upset, and then my wife and I sat down. This is a great opportunity. And I love how you gave an employee mindset versus entrepreneur mindset. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong with people working. My wife works for somebody. No. But also what I noticed with my wife working for somebody, she switched from the news to a new career. She has not necessarily an entrepreneur, but she has more of she has a great employer who's given her that freedom mindset to like try new things, do different stuff, use your creative spirits, not really set limits if this is going to help everyone involved. And I encourage people, whether you're an entrepreneur or if you're not, definitely get a side hustle if you're not. But if you're not, if there's things that you could do, like he's talking about, that could help the company, help other people, don't be limited by it. You're here on this planet to serve and help at a capacity, and that could be anything. Like Scott is our producer here. He's doing an amazing thing helping voices be heard all over the world by providing this amazing studio here. And I'm not just saying that to plug him and give him props. It's just a fact, like to be able to have this studio. So knowing what you have and the gifts that you have, this guy's amazing here. You have your gifts. So I just think that was an incredible story. You've shared some incredible stuff. And hopefully the people that are listening realize, you're only limited by your own mindset. You're only limited by what you believe your capacity. And I believe everyone that's listening to this has unfathomable, unimaginable capacity to do amazing things on this planet. Well, let's switch gears here for a second, if you're cool with that. So I want you to share, because we always want to dive into like challenges and overcoming them. And you have a little bit, but is there anything particular challenging in your life that you've been able to deal with and push through that you'd love to share on here that you think listeners would really find value in? Yeah,
I think, social media is a funny place where you can look on social media and you just have these assumptions about people's lives. And my wife and I have been able to be successful in entrepreneurship. But what I realized, even coming back to the beginning, I still struggle with scarcity, money block issues, where I think the more money makes the world go around. Like it's not needed for happiness, but we do need it in this day and age. And you can do a lot with it. You can make a big impact with it. And so I realized I want to go be a multimillionaire, but I have these money blocks, and it's from my childhood. And I think a lot of things, what I realize, especially now as a dad, very important. Like the first 7 years is that imprint period of a human being's life. And a lot of our personality in different ways and the ways we look at life is shaped in that. So I realize I have to unwind like childhood trauma about some money blocks. That's one of my big things. Another one is, gosh, right now, my wife and I have such a great foundation. We've known each other since childhood, since birth. We have this like Disney love story, all the things. Our parents were best friends, pregnant with us, and we were babies playing as best friends. And we came together as adults, totally fell in love like 10 years ago. The rest is history. Man. And so everyone looks outside looking in is like, oh my gosh, they're amazing, this amazing marriage and relationship. They're probably happy all the time. Like, no, oh my gosh, we've had so much stress in our life recently. We've moved from California to Colorado, which we chose to do. but moving is super stressful. And then we hired an au pair from Switzerland, but she got super tip for childcare because we both work from home. We work together. We realize the best version of us for our daughter, and soon to be, we're due in June, our second, is us growing, is us going after our passions, is us working in things we're passionate about, is us also being present with our kids. So we're used to some level of help and childcare. And I realize people who get no help are literally superhuman parents. It's insane. So we've had like no childcare the past month. So it's been like this insane thing. And it's put a ton of stress on our marriage, and it's put a ton of stress on like our intimate life. And so that is always my number one, even before the kids, because my wife and I realize we got to be good to be the best versions of us and show what a good, healthy, strong, loving relationship is. So we can be good to the kids and they can see more is caught than taught. Right. And so we've had struggles recently, like just connecting in our intimate life and in our personal life together. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're putting everything else before our marriage. So what I realize is there's ebbs and flows in life. There's seasons, there's chapters, like the world goes, summer, fall, winter, spring. There's that in business. There's that in your marriage. There's that in relationships. And so we've been in this wintertime. We're coming into spring, which we're excited about. And we're welcoming a new life in, but everyone deals with trauma, and there's big trauma and little trauma. There's losing a loved one. We've probably all lost someone close to us. There's little things, like these little things you don't realize. Like if you're talking about money in front of your kids and you're like, oh, we can't afford that, or money doesn't grow on trees. That's little trauma, but it compounds. And that's what I had in my childhood. And so, challenges I've dealt with are around money blocks in our marriage and relationship, which we're committed to our love. And I think marriage and love is really a verb, right? It's something you have to consistently work at. It's not like you fall in love and then you get married on the big day and then you just never have to work at it again. It's like a constant work in progress, like anything. You got to show up for it. So I feel very blessed and fortunate. I was born, I think I was gifted with a very positive spirit. So I always look at the bright side of everything. It's just who I am. It's how I'm wired. So when I reflect on failures and trauma, I more look at it as like, those were learning lessons. I grew from it. But I think we've all dealt with trauma in different ways. And it's there, like you said, our creator put that there to help shape us, to make some impact or have some gift or passion in our life.
Yeah. And I agree, like different seasons and that you said, and then what is caught is taught. You've probably heard the other version of it is like your kids, your kids see more by what you do than what you say, or learn more by what they see than what you say. And I'm a believer in that. And and me and my wife talk about the same things, as far as, and it's a challenge, right? Like you want to be these good images of a relationship because that they'll mirror it. In fact, I saw my parents, this similar verbiage, and this is no diss on my parents. They only are a product of their own environment. So we can't afford that. Like we didn't take a lot of vacations. And I talk a little bit about this in my book because I look at everything as an opportunity. You're either growing or you're learning or you're winning, you're either winning or you're growing. And so I took that as, I'm not going to let whatever my income looks like not take vacations. So we've taken them. In fact, we ended up getting a camper a year and a half ago. And like now we take an abundant amount of like weekend getaways and have more trips than in 1 year than I did as an entire childhood. Again, no diss on my parents, it was a great learning tool. And the words that we use and so I'm with you there, the money blocks, it's been my entire adulthood that I've had to work through that. In fact, I joke, but it's reality. I joke that my parents had like 6 jobs between the two of them, but it was fact. They were high paid master's degree educators with their children of their parents went through the Depression. They went through World War II. So in fact, my grandfather was in World War II. And so that was what they were brought up. So I look back on that. So that's where their mindset developed from. So I want people to also realize where they came from. And you can have to really work hard to change it, but you have the possibility. You just got to have the awareness of it. So for me, it was very similar in that like, I heard my parents and they were like this, that we couldn't afford this and food. And so it was always about creating that environment in my home and using that verbiage and finding different ways to navigate it. And so even with the relationship, because money can be an ultimate stressor. So I would see my parents fight. My parents never got divorced, but I'm sure, and all that, they would threaten it. I'm going to leave you and scream and yell. So like, that's something, just because I was witness to it, I didn't want to make that in my house. And again, and no fault of theirs, but it was all learning lessons, and it's things that in our house to really teach. So I love that you brought that up, and it's really important because it's things that we have to work on. Oh, the 6 jobs between the two of us. So early on, I was, after college, this is what I was going to say. I was a restaurant manager, and I was making really good money as a single guy at age like 22, 23. I'm managing this big restaurant within a franchise, and I was high up in the food chain at 22 when most of these managers, I think, were in the like 40s, 50s, and 60s. And for some reason, I felt the need that I had to work 2 other jobs. I was working at the Buckle. I don't remember that store. I was working at this restaurant that I was managing. And then I also got a job at Gold's Gym because I was like, love fitness and health. And I got a minor in like this fitness movement thing. And I was like, I wanted to at least do it. So it was like, I didn't need all that. But guess what? I was making a lot of money, especially for a single person, but I was always broke. So it took me a while to realize that everything is mindset. And when I switched that, it was amazing how my bank account started looking healthier, my life, the opportunities, and it's still a work in progress. I'm sure it is with you. And that's why you talked about gratitude. I loved how we started this podcast. That's a stepping stone, and just doing little things and checking yourself. Something that I started recently that I'll share with you is I had to turn it off, and that's how I was thinking about it. So on my phone, I don't know if you can see this, I set different alarms, and it says, what am I thinking and how do I feel? And it gets me to pause. And I brought this up recently, and I wanted to bring it up again because I didn't really dive into it. And so what that does is it gets me to stop and sit, and gets me to analyze, am I thinking happy, good thoughts? And if not, let's switch it. And then what am I thinking? Like, it's amazing that we're so busy physically and mentally. Our minds can be really busy. We don't also have to think about what are we actually like thinking and where is our mind going, because that controls everything, as you've touched on several times already. And I know that's for your philosophy. So that right there, having automatic timer check-ins, but you're a dad. So what was an accident, cool thing. But again, like you, I don't really believe in accidents. My kids have been witness to the alarm, asking questions. And now anytime it goes off, they're actually like, friendly fighting, let's put it like that. I want to go first. I want to go first. And they're shouting off. And so it's really cool, especially when you can be filled within a child's imagination of what they're dreaming or thinking or where their mindset's at, because it's pretty cool when you got a unicorn hockey player model daughter and her extravagant imagination. And then my son, who literally wants to donate millions to these different organizations while also riding a Ferrari, playing professional hockey and whatever else that comes to his mind. So just wanted to share that with you too, and the audience, because I briefly brought it up for like a minute in the last podcast. I was like, this was a great opportunity to bring it up again, man. So take that. I
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's so cool to see your kids and hear their dreams, because like, we are born limitless. Kids are limitless. They're thinking. And I love what you touched on, the mindset. I truly believe if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand, right? Like everything starts with a thought. The human mind, outside of God, outside of the creator, the human mind is the most powerful thing in the universe, right? It's something, think about it. There was no airplanes however many years ago before the Wright brothers discovered it. Now we can just fly across the world in jets and planes. Like we have these machines that propel us across the world. That started as a thought in someone's mind. There was no evidence of it other than birds flying. And it starts as a thought. The chair you may be sitting in or the car you're driving in right now, like began as a thought. So the human mind, what it conceives and believes it can achieve, it can literally bring into a physical manifestation. It's absolutely incredible. And Justin, what you were mentioning, our life is a product of like the story we continuously tell ourselves. And 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. We don't often have new thoughts every single day. They're like the similar thoughts, and 80% of thoughts are negative. I forget what study that was in, but it's like, wow, that's a lot of compounding negativity. My bills, oh, my job, oh, my wife's getting on my nerves, oh, this and that. So how can we rewire that? How can we rewrite that? Where naturally our brains are formed to keep us away from danger. And now we live in a society, there's not as many dangers and threats to our life in the acute manner, right? Like right away. And so this compounding negativity doesn't serve us. And so things like you, where you set these alarms to just disrupt maybe the normal thought process and be like, oh, hold on, I'm training myself and my brain to get still and get reflective right here. I think what I've realized, because I'm like a go type A driven personality, my biggest gains are actually in the periods of stillness. And I think what I've realized now later on in life, in adulthood, it took me 30 some odd years to realize that, but that I need to find stillness. I need to find alone time with myself or with God, whatever your beliefs are, to kind of listen to those whispers of life, to listen to, because with those hunches, those intuitions, God speaking to you, whatever it is, because that's where you're going to find the gold. That's where you're going to find your purpose. I think humans, we're on this perpetual journey trying to find our highest self and what's our purpose and all the things. And we find it only in stillness. We find it in listening and tapping in and tuning into ourselves, to our creator, to what your beliefs are. And that has been the biggest thing for me. And so I love that you set these reminders to like rewrite your narrative and ask yourself and get reflective and maybe get still and get quiet.
Well, you're using a term, but I like how you brought up whispers at least twice now. And I love that term. I use it in the body, like our body whispers, then it talks, then it screams, in pain. And people ignore the whispers and the talks and then wait till it screams, then want to blame whatever externally. Yeah. But I love how you're using whispers, because if we're so busy-minded or busy physically, or continually even using the word busy when we're not really busy, so we say that we're busy to ignore or avoid or procrastinate on some whatever's in our life, and then our mind and everything else becomes busy, and then we just find something to be busy, whatever that might be. It might be something healthy. It might not be something healthy. It might turn into you working out for 3 hours instead of 45 minutes. It might turn into you scrolling on the phone for half an hour. But I love how you say whispers, because that's really the best, if not the only way, but definitely the best way to be able to hear our thoughts, to hear. My best and creative stuff has happened in the weirdest times. The shower, driving with I tend to drive with no radio on. I used to be the guy that always had to listen to music, and I love music. And even some morning it's really, really hard. But I'm the guy that listens to the whispers now while I'm driving. I'm going to use that term. I never use it in this realm, but I love how you said that, because even some of my best meditative practices, like going into the woods, really deep meditating and listening to the whispers. And for those that are listening, like that's gold right there. My book ideas, like ideas within my books, training, business, ways to work through confrontation or fights that I've gotten with my wife, or moments that I've had that I'm not too happy about with my kids, and like spending that time, even in good moments. So from personally to professionally, you need to take time to hear the whispers. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Maybe I'll come up with a subtitle to your original title of your book, but money mind blocks to listen to the whispers or something. But that's some great tools. So let's shift a little bit more. So we've talked about you being a coach, and I'm sure some people really want to hear. We've talked about your life. We've talked about your amazing family. How do you approach clients overcoming, whether it be the physical, the mental that you work for? It could be your health clients, could be your business, could be both. So how do you approach that, especially the mental in today's day and age?
That's a good question. And what I realize is everyone's an individual and everyone's different. Now, there are some similar patterns and strategies, and that's what you kind of study to see how to transform and how to help someone change their life. But That's really the key. What I've realized as a coach, I realized I wanted to be a mentor. Hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. As a trainer, you're more of a mentor, right? Like, hey, here's what to do. Do this. I know more than you because I'm researched and trained in all this stuff and this, educate on it. I've done it. I've lived it. Do this. A coach is more, I realize you ask questions. And the goal is actually to get the client or the individual to come up with their answer. And that ends up being the right answer. But what I realize is in coaching people, really getting to know and understand them, whether it's in health or business. Let's just use business. Let's say they are like me and they're in a job, say corporate America, that they didn't want to be in. And coming back to your point, the world needs entrepreneurs and the world needs employees. It needs both. It can't have just entrepreneurs. The world would be nuts, and it can't have just employees. You need everything. The key is like working in something that you feel like you're making an impact and you can at least be passionate about. Or maybe you're an employee and you do, but you work on your passion project and your gifts outside of work time. And it might make you a lot of money or it might make you no money. The key is like really tuning into your gifts. But back to, let's say it's someone who wants to become an entrepreneur and start their own business. It's what I realize is really getting to know them. It's getting to know their personality. It's getting to know their story. It's getting to know maybe their trauma or their blocks, their mindset blocks. And it's asking the right questions. And it's really getting down to why they want to do it, what they want and why they want it. And then what it comes down to is that person like making a decision. I realize there's a few key components, especially when I look at entrepreneurs or successful people. There was a point in time where there was a decision made, a decision to hire the coach or a decision to leave the job or a decision to do whatever it is, get healthy. And so it comes down to a decision. And so when you're rooted in your decision and rooted in your why, then it's just the reps, right? Then it's just consistency. But it's really persistence says, I will do this until I succeed. I will stay on the health program until I get where I want to be. I will keep working, making the sales calls, networking, meeting with people until I succeed. And then it's funny, you succeed or get to that point, and then you're like, but wait, there's a bigger version of me out there. Okay, here's the next mountain I got to climb. Yeah. But what you realize that everything, it starts and ends in the mind, whether it's health, whether it's business, whether it's marriage, like it really starts and ends in our mind. So it's really everything in coaching is really mindset coaching. And there is, of course, mentorship. Like Warren Buffett could mentor me and I'd be like, hey, I'd ask him questions and he'd just give me answers on how to build wealth. Right. But he's probably a really good coach too. A great coach asks the right questions and inspires you, where it's this intrinsic passion, these intrinsic answers that come from within, like, no, I want to do this. I want to do that. And so that's kind of how I approach it. But I've realized now, having coached, hundreds and hundreds of people in different ways, there's not one way to do it. I try and figure out those perfect systems that everyone can use to change their life and achieve greatness. But I've realized that it is personal, and it's getting to know that person and is using the tools the coaches have to help them change their life. But you're just really linking arms with them. You're guiding them, but they're doing the work. And when that client takes 100% responsibility over their success, their health, their marriage, whatever it is, that's when their life begins to change. And that's what I love to see the most. You realize, I want to become a multimillionaire. I'm going to have to impact a lot of people in big ways to do that. And when you lead with that service, like, the money will come.
Yeah, it's so interesting how things are so similar. Like you mentioned, the unique personal approach, and same thing as a health coach or a fitness coach or a business coach. And it's really to build that relationship. It's to get to know them. I mean, from a movement practice, as I work with people, yes, there's certain ways I want them to move better and to ultimately feel better, and then therefore they'll live better. The idea is, there's things that they come in wanting to do. Maybe it's losing weight. Maybe it's a guy that wants to build massive arms, but I got to give them a little bit of what they want, but what they need in combination. And same idea. Like, so you have a business, this guy wants to build this and make a certain amount, and then they get there, but it's just like fitness and business. You get there and you set new goals. So somebody loses the weight or builds the muscle. It's not like you just stop. This is a lifelong practice, and then you set new goals. And I think that's what, I really believe, I imagine that's what puts people in a plateau or holds them back or limits them is, they hit they hit their initial goal that they never maybe thought they would really hit so quickly or whenever they hit it, and then they don't know how to set new ones. And that's also where a coach or it can really come in by asking great questions and guiding and navigating and things like that. So you continually, one, help yourself, help your family, help more people, whatever your line of work, and just be more of a service to this planet. So I love that. And I forgot to mention something earlier. I loved how you brought up the Wright brothers. I believe they're such an interesting one because they were actually in competition. They didn't know it and they didn't care about it with this. I can't even remember his name. You got to go to the audit and everyone knows the Wright brothers. People don't know the guys that were being paid tons of money by the government to make the first airplane. The Wright brothers just had an idea and had a passion, and they were like farmers and just wanted to do this thing, and they did it. And so that's just a great story too, as far as obstacles. They didn't set any. They didn't believe they had any. They just had this idea and they wanted to do it, and they weren't in a rush either. They weren't in a rush. They just, this was they wanted to do. And I believe sometimes, especially in this fast paced world, we think we have to be the first. We have to get it out first. In my wife's former career news, it was like the thing that we had the news story first. We reported it first. But you realize is if you have the first, but your information's horrible or wrong, then that's worse than just being second. And me and my wife talked about, no one really actually noticed. No one was like, yay, this channel was first and this channel was second. Nope. And it's the same thing in business. You can improve upon things and make things better. And so just keep that in mind as you're creating in this world. So continue into this as far as the health and wellness. I always, whenever I have people like yourself on here, like I said, we have a Wright. It's not always people in the wellness industry. What do you see and envision the future? I mean, there's all kinds of things going on, especially with technology. We got AI. I mean, I've seen coaches post AI is taking over the programming world and everything else. There's no need for people like you and me, but where do you see the future of the wellness industry and the role it will play in our interesting society?
That's a great question. I think there's such advancement in technology, which can be such a good thing. But at the end of the day, humans need connection. That's why we populate mostly in cities or suburbs, and we're together, and we need human connection. The human soul needs to connect to others. And so I don't think that can ever be replaced. However, I do see us moving away from human connection and moving towards technology and AI. And usually what happens is it's cyclical, right? Where it eventually we're so out of alignment that big things happen in the world, natural or not. And we find our way back to homeostasis or to that human connection. We will always be creatures that need each other. And so there's nothing can replace that human to human connection, especially in person. Nothing can replace a robot. Can't replace a trainer. A robot can't, they can give you the health stuff, but it's you have to connect on a soul level. You have to connect on a spiritual level to really make change. And so I do kind of see us moving further and further away from our health. And I think things happen in the world like global pandemics to shock us, to cause us to reflect. There was a lot of silver linings, positives in the global pandemic. There's a lot of negatives for sure. There was lives lost. I have compassion for every bad thing that happened with the most recent global pandemic, but it also brought us together. What happened is it shook and it rattled us up to our core and to our soul. And a lot of people were like, I don't want to do this job forever. I want to work from home. I want to be around my family. Hold up. I need to focus on my health. You start to realize, oh my gosh, I appreciate human connection. In-laws, come on over. I wasn't seeing people for a while, all these different things. So what I think is I do see us moving further into AI and technology and all these things. And that is a blessing. It's a curse too. And the curse side of it, I think when we get far enough there and away from our alignment with each other as humans and as a species and as community, it's going to come full circle back to that. I don't know how or when, but that's kind of what I see, because nothing can truly replace that. I think nothing can. I also see it with our food, in America. I'm almost disgusted. It pisses me off. I won't go down that rabbit hole of what is allowed in our foods, the standard American diet, what is preached by quote unquote educators on food, it's absolutely terrible advice. Like we need to get back to our roots, back to Mother Nature, back to what comes from the earth, back to those staples, those foundations of health, the movement, there's sleep, all the things.
Yeah, there's a quote in a movie, and I can't remember. It says, "Nature will always find a way." Right?
Yep.
Maybe it's a scary movie. In fact, now that I think about it, I think it's that movie with, Jurassic Park. Yeah, there you go. I believe there was some similarity in a movie with Mark Wahlberg too. I can't remember the name of that one. There's an M. Night Shyamalan where the trees started killing it to happen. Yeah, see, same idea. And while those are fiction. Right. There's fact to it, I believe. Like things will come back, and even if it's forced, right? These are tools, AI and stuff like this. Me and Scott and I've talked about it, but it's with anything. The old everything in moderation, use them as tools. Like a cell phone can be a great tool. You and I connected via Instagram. Like, you and I would consider friends now that live in different states, which wouldn't have been possible without technology. But it's being mindful and going back to the whispers and quieting things and just spending some time away from it and just being aware, maybe I was a little on it. Maybe I ignored my child, and just be okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just be aware of it and use these things as tools, but come back to nature. And that's why like people are profiting off of, heck, there's places in this country, and I know in others, that are literally charging to take people barefoot into the woods, lots of money, as if they don't know how, because of what's called grounding. Like it's some new science, but it's always been here. I've been doing it since we all did it as kids, right? Like we ran around barefoot, and we didn't think, hey, this is great, and we're all like doing these things, but it's just, we found benefit in being in the sun and with our friends and playing and talking, and it'll come back to that. But we need to be aware. And I believe it is starting to, but I believe there's a split in society, where people are going farther down the dark rabbit hole of this and becoming so much connected to the machine that they're becoming a machine themselves. And then you have the other who, there might be a middle one that uses the technology. I consider myself maybe in the middle, where like I'm this hippie dude who's playing barefoot with my kids outdoors, but also can see benefits in technology to connect with the human world. I'm not completely living in a teepee of no technology and hunting and gathering my own food. But I literally had the nutrition conversation with one of my clients today. Like we were talking, he loves dairy, loves, and you and I can go down a rabbit hole on dairy alone, at least Americanized dairy, but he loves just handfuls of cheese basically. And he's like, I tried the plant-based, and I was like, well, that actually might be worse for you. And we talked about like, look at the ingredient profile of what they call vegan. They've just marketed the American market because there's this whole vegan market, but there's more. If you go to the cheese, the natural just cheese, like in Wegmans here, you'll just see cheese. But we could talk about the processing going on that. But when you go to the vegan cheese, it's like 100 ingredients. I was like,
it's insane.
So he's like, that was worse on my gut. Yeah. So we could go down a rabbit hole on this, but the idea is, you mentioned it, keep it to as essentially what I say and what it sounds like you say is keep it as real as possible. We touched on in the beginning, like the importance of gut health. And before we wrap it up, we probably should dive into that because we talked heavily on mental, and we do on this podcast and our mind and where we're at, but let's connect the dots because we haven't really talked about it. And I haven't talked in depth on a podcast on just the gut microbiome connection to the brain and how important it is. And we're not trying to tell you guys to all eat this way and the other way is going to ruin you, because my wife loves fries and she'll turn the podcast off right now if I said never eat fries again. So let's be honest, real and raw right now about the gut microbiome, gut health as it connects to the brain, and what people can really do today to help them and how it's going to help them strive. Every single day. Yeah.
The gut health, I've realized more and more, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to spew all the facts on it. I'll spew a few, but what I realized, and like you said, it is moderation and it is balance. I go out and have beers and a burger with the fries with the boys sometimes, but 90, I live by a 90-10 principle. 90% of the time I'm dialed in, super clean, super healthy. 10%, I'll do whatever the heck I want. But what I realize is the gut, you guys have probably heard it, is a second brain, right? There's more and more research, and
I say it's
80%
the first, man.
of serotonin, and serotonin is that happiness hormone where what makes us feel happy is created in our gut. And so creating a prosperous, good, healthy environment down there is very important. And the standard American diet and all the things and the processed food and things like gluten, and not to say never have gluten again, but things like gluten, it causes inflammation in the gut, and inflammation is the root of all disease. Everything you put in your mouth and even on your body is getting you closer to disease or fueling you. And so when you start to look at it as fuel, the human body is incredible. It can live off you eating Chick-fil-A 3 times a day, every day for a while. Now you're going to cause metabolic chaos everywhere in your body, and you're going to die of something, and you're going to get autoimmune and diabetes and all these different diseases. But it can live pretty long with Chick-fil-A, which is insane because it's like a fried piece of terrible raised chicken with industrial seed oils wrapped in gluten. And so that's like one of the worst things you could have. It tastes delicious, but the human body, we eat that stuff because we're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm doing fine. But it's more the compound effect, right? And everything that is literally poisoning your body and poisoning your gut, versus if you're fueling it with, I eat tons of meat. I have like a paleo type diet, or I like to call it lifestyle. But, you're supposed to have probably 20 to 30 different variety of plants in your diet to keep your microbiome and all those healthy organisms functioning and healthy. Almost no one does that, especially here in America. And so what's important these days is getting those green superfoods in the powders, or getting the probiotics or the prebiotics and the digestive enzymes. The best thing you can do is get it from whole foods, but we need to supplement this day and age because of the lack of nutrients in a lot of the foods that we're eating today.
Yeah. I mean, this was 20 years ago that maybe somewhere. It was definitely the latter part of college. So I graduated in 2003 to give people an idea. And I know I look good for 42.
I love it.
It's the gut microbiome. No, but
that's right.
I read an article that blew my mind, and I don't really feel people were talking about it. At least I wasn't aware of it. And even I took this in school classes in nutrition, basic nutrition and movement. And I was like, it basically said a ton of stuff, but the biggest takeaway for me that I want to bring up here was broccoli, which is considered like a superfood at the time 20 years ago. Now everything's a superfood, right? I think anything that's as real as you can get and as clean as you can get is a superfood. It's going to be good for you. But broccoli, the superfood, nowadays is so green and so beautiful when you get it from the grocery store, and it talked about that. And again, this is dating this article. A lot's even gotten worse and changed since then, of how the broccoli of today compared to like the broccoli of the 1940s, 50s and prior is, I believe, was less than 36% nutrition value, meaning you're getting more than like 60% less nutrients in a broccoli, just so it can be prettier. And this goes from the water to the soil, and we go down that. And it talked about all this. And again, this article was 20 years ago, and I know things have only got worse. So it's maybe like 25% or whatever. So he talked about supplementation, and that's why you also want to look for quality. And that's stuff that where him and I connected on. Like we're in similar supplements, we're using similar products, and it's all comes down to that, because it's like you want stuff that can be in places, like Canada and places of Australia that's heavily vetted. Like, for example, the company that we're connected with bans, I quote me if I might be wrong, but over like 1,500 different things they banned from it. Where in America, we're not really getting rid of it because of a profit thing. Back to dairy, I'll give you an example. Whenever I go to Canada, we go to Canada a lot, like Toronto, or even just right over, I'll have ice cream every time. There's this place, I forget the name, it was like Holy Jesus Ice Cream or something. It's amazing. And I'll get it because it does nothing to me. Like, I have no appendix. Dairy blows me up in America, but over there I can eat ice cream, I can drink milk and be just fine because of their standards around the dairy. It's a much cleaner product. And so again, back to the whispering, you need to, I'll go even down to just what you eat to how you're eating it. There's benefits in cooking. There's even benefits in gardening and finding. And I know if you're like me, man, that's not efficient. I'm an efficient king. I consider myself the efficient king. And I know these may not sound like it, but it goes back to, a famous quote from a book that many of you probably know that listen to podcasts, and it's discipline equals freedom. And it really does. I'm disciplined on a Sunday, and I spend time with my kids, and we all cook together for 2 hours, our entire lunch and dinners for the week. And that solves a lot of our problems. With that discipline, we're freedom. So we know what we're cooking. You know, we garden together. When you get a team of people, if you're in a family and you have kids and you have a partner, now this if you're a single mother with one child or a single father with one child, I get it. It's a challenge. And I would love to have you on this podcast if you are trying to overcome and strive this. But back to it, if you have more than yourself in the house, that's a team right there. And find a way to navigate that. I just heard a couple of a friend of mine where he's always done the cooking, the shopping. He's a lot like me, and this is similar in my house where he, for the longest time, but now he's coming up with the recipes and his wife's actually doing the shopping now. And then they're co-cooking and now they've got a ton more time in their week, you know? Mm-hmm. So there are ways if you quiet the mind to kind of navigate and figure these things out within your life, because we're all different, we're all unique. So maybe some of these things, but hopefully you can take away some of the things that we've talked on here today and get some key takeaways. Man, him and I could talk. I have another list of questions, but we need to start wrapping it up here. And so I would love, before we ask all the Instagrams and how people can contact you, man, you have daughters. I know how important that is. I have daughters. And so can you, what's some exciting projects you have working on is one thing I want to know, but what's a unicorn size dream, whether it be personally, professionally, that you have on your mind and on your heart that you'd love to see before your last breath or in the near future?
Oh my gosh. That's such a good one. I have daughters. I do want to say first, you asked me about big dad energy. I'm such a proud dad. Like becoming a dad, it shifts your identity, your legacy shifts, everything shifts in your life. Your priorities, your passions, your purpose shift a bit. And that becomes a big part of it, hopefully. And so I created this brand called Big Dad Energy for me because I wanted to wear my pride on my chest. I created some fun dad swag, but it's more a movement and to empower dads and fathers, because we know how important the father role is in the household, and to be the strong provider, whatever the traditional father, but also to be compassionate, loving, caring, build a strong love and foundation in your marriage. Let your kids see that. Build strong connection with your kids, like be there for them, be a part of it, be present, and go hunt the meat, but also come home and be loving too. And I think that's super important. So I created Big Dad Energy, and that's just around empowering proud dads. And we do some men's retreats, and there's some fun dad swag and more stuff to come. I just launched it, but that's where you kind of,
his swag's pretty cool. I'll back him up. I've seen some of it's pretty neat. You should go check it out. Yeah.
And where it's like, you really rock it. You're like, I'm a proud dad. I'm the dad who wears my daughter on my chest to the park and all the things. But damn, a unicorn God-sized
for yourself, your family, personally,
for
professionally,
myself or my family in my life. That is such an amazing question.
You want to marinate on it.
I think a few things come to mind. One, my wife and I's love story. This isn't like God-sized, but whatever. But it is incredible, and so many people ask about it. I want to find the right producer and just be like, let's get this made into a movie, because I think it can inspire a lot of people, because there's ups and downs. But beyond that, one thing that's always been a pain point for me is at some point, it's not in the near future, but I'd love to get into the nutrition, the education system, like schooling system, and really focus on health, on nutrition, and on the mindset, all the stuff we talked about on this podcast, right? Starting to get it into mainstream education, where at a young age, we're incepting that educational system and incepting the minds of young kids to understand life. What we learn in school is almost irrelevant. It's more the relationships, the socials, all that stuff, but learning tools to live an amazing life. What if they taught Think and Grow Rich, the book in school, or things like that, like success principles and nutrition. Nutrition's been a big thing for me. So that's the God-sized goal: infiltrate the school system with this education on the personal growth and the nutrition and all these things to really live your best life. Yeah.
And I'll piggyback on that, man. I didn't realize as a kid, but whenever I walk into my kids' schools, I'm like, no wonder.
Yeah.
They're they're no different. So I can, honestly, I've been in jail, by the way. I've also worked in commissary in prison, and And schools and that outside the bars weren't different. A lot of brick, not a lot of windows, very like alarms, go here. And it was weird. And I did, as an adult going back to these. So I'll piggyback on everything you said there and add, we need to open this up. It's hard to have a free thinking mind when you feel boxed and closed in within a desk and in a classroom and in a building. No wonder why, we could blame technology all day long on their posture, but it's also in the mind. So when you put people in this box, inside another box, no wonder why kids are walking around this. We can sit here and blame technology, but there's more to it than that, as always, I believe. And sorry to get me on a passionate rage there, but I'm on top of this on not just what we're teaching them, but how and where we're teaching them. So I believe that's a great place to end there, man. I would love to talk to you more, especially we didn't dive totally into the father role, but I believe there's a ton of things that help people strive. Was there anything else before we knock off here real quick that you want to provide these listeners to help them strive 365?
Great question. We covered so much. I know we could do a Joe Rogan length podcast, but we won't. I think it's just back to that, like, really, we were all born with gifts, right? And we were born with God-sized, unicorn-sized goals and dreams and all these things. And get still, go listen to that, go tap into that, because if you're feeling stuck or unfulfilled in your life, it's because you're not living out your soul's purpose. And that is success, I believe, in life, right? Like, go find what that is, what you're meant to do, what your gifts, what your soul wants to do, and go do it. And it doesn't mean you need to make a ton of money doing it. Although I believe when you lead with passion and if you would do something for free, I think you can make a lot of money doing it, because you're just going to lead with authenticity and passion. But listen to those whispers, back to the whispers, listen to your gut and your heart, and just go for it.
Yeah. If you build it, they will come. They made a movie about that. Another movie quote there. So, hey, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Strive 365. Just remember to like, share, comment, and we will provide Wade's social media and ways to contact below on this podcast episode. So make sure you check that out. And again, like, share, subscribe, because it's not just about you. It's about this world. And we know this episode can help a lot of people. So just by doing that, you're serving, you're helping, and you're leading other people to the helpful tips in today's podcast. Thank you very much.